tax policy, these tax cuts that came through, earnings estimates should go up 20%. So stocks should go up 20%. They've only gone up 7 to 10% so far since the tax cuts have been formalized as they were going to happen. So you should have about another 10% run.
Right, because earnings are going to be that much
earnings
better.
Estimates go up.
Indeed. Well, John,
That's right.
It's good to talk to you. Thank you so much. It's nice to take out some of the noise now and then and just look at what's actually happening. John Layfield. All right, let's move on to the president's controversial immigration comments now. Earlier on Fox Business, I did speak with former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski about all the outrage you have seen in the media, and I want to share with you what he had to say. Watch.
This is fake outrage by the liberal left and the mainstream media who doesn't want to focus on the real issue. They don't want to focus on the fact that we have a broken immigration system that this president has pledged to reform. They don't want to focus on the fact that this candidate pledged on building a wall on the southern border so that we don't have illegal immigrants coming across our border and killing American citizens. They don't want to focus on the fact that chain migration now takes up 44% of all the immigration that takes place in our country.
Is that it then? Is this just one big giant diversion? Let's go to John Roberts. He's at the White House with a look at how this is all playing out and the mainstream media having a total field day.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, Trish. Well, if this is fake outrage, it's bipartisan fake outrage because the president is hearing about it from both sides of the political aisle, not to mention around the world. Hillary Clinton, the latest person to weigh in on the reports that President Trump said during a meeting in the Oval Office, something to the effect of, why are we taking so many people from S-hole, blank hole countries? Hillary Clinton tweeting a short time ago, quote, the anniversary of the devastating earthquake 8 years ago in Haiti, she's talking about, is a day to remember the tragedy, honor the resilient people of Haiti, and affirm America's commitment to helping our neighbors. Instead, we're subjected to Trump's ignorant, racist views of anyone who doesn't look like him. Should be pointed out, though, that the Clintons, in the wake of that devastating earthquake in 2010, both Hillary and Bill Clinton made some pretty big promises about earthquake recovery. Many of those promises have gone unfulfilled. The president denies saying the word S-hole in its entirety, at least, in a tweet this morning saying the language used by me at the DACA meeting was tough, but this was not the language used. And now Senators Cotton and Perdue, who were both at that meeting, coming forward to say, well, they don't recall hearing the president saying that. In a joint statement to Fox News a short time ago saying, quote, we do not recall the president saying these comments specifically, but what he did call out was the imbalance in our current immigration system, which does not protect American workers and our national interests. Senator Lindsey Graham, who was also there, did not confirm the actual language that the president used, but did say in a statement that he confronted the president about whatever it was that he did say, saying, quote, following comments by the president, I said my piece directly to him yesterday. The president and all those attending the meeting know what I said and how I feel. I've always believed that America is an idea not defined by its people, but by its ideals. So what happens to DACA now? Well, according to the president in a series of tweets this morning, there is a lot more work that has to be done. The plan that was brought to him yesterday by Senators Graham and Flake and then talked about by Senator Durbin and some of the other people in the room was nowhere near what the president wanted. The president saying that there's still huge problems with chain migration and ending the visa lottery system. In fact, as we see the president boarding Marine One there at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Bethesda, heading for Andrews Air Force Base, where he will depart shortly from Mar-a-Lago. What prompted the president to say what he said was a proposal that was floated by Senators Graham and Durbin that countries that were whose citizens were given temporary protected status in the United States, countries like El Salvador, Honduras, as well as Haiti, some African countries, well, they said instead of renewing that temporary protection status, why don't we make them a priority in the visa lottery system? Which then apparently provoked the president to throw up his hands and say, what are you talking about here? Why are we taking people from these countries and not taking them from countries like Norway? So Trish, I mean, there's going to be a little bit of he said, she said going on about this. We've got it from multiple sources that that's what the president said. But inevitably, the debate is going to turn to the larger issue, which is what to do about the so-called dreamers, because time is running out.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, this is a distraction along the way, but that issue has to be addressed for sure. And we appreciate the context around the comments. John Roberts, thank you so much.
Thanks, Trish.
Again, you just saw the president leaving there, Walter Reed, where he had his exam. He's heading to Andrews Air Force Base, where he will make his way then onto Mar-a-Lago for the weekend. Now, this story on the president's immigration comments, it's certainly a big one, without a doubt. But does it give one of the big three networks an excuse to just completely, totally ignore a major development that happened on these bonuses? Brent Bizzell is exposing that bias for you next.
January 20th, Cavuto is live for 2 hours from the nation's capital. 1 year after the inauguration, Neil breaks down the president's accomplishments, agenda, and how it all impacts you. Starting January 20th, don't miss Cavuto live every Saturday on the Fox News Channel.
You have.
Well, the president started it, certainly, and the mainstream media has been more than happy to run with it, certainly. You know what I'm talking about, the alleged comments made during yesterday's meeting. The major evening newscast and morning shows, well, they spent nearly 33 minutes, can you imagine, reporting and discussing President Trump's controversial immigration comments. But you know how much time they spent covering Walmart's tax cut bonuses and minimum wage hike? Around 5 minutes. And get this, media watchdog Brent Bizzell says ABC didn't mention Walmart not once. Brett, good to see you. Is this a little biased not to mention such a significant major story? I mean, that was also a big part of the news cycle yesterday.
Well, let's put it in perspective, Trish. During the Obama years and going back before that, you've had the left, led by the national media, doing thousands of stories about the need to increase the minimum wage. And as they've talked about that, they've pointed the finger directly at Walmart. Walmart's response all along the way has been that you didn't have the numbers that would allow it. Mm-hmm. It just didn't allow it. Well, what happened? With the Trump tax cuts, the margins have changed immediately in such a way that Walmart announces an increase to $11 an hour and massive bonuses to its employees. If this were the Obama administration, the media would be at the door of Walmart talking about hope and change and celebrating the results of the economic policies of Barack Obama. And yet, it's not just the bias by commission, which you're seeing in this silly story in the Oval Office, but it's the bias by omission, where they're not telling the story of what's really going on in this country. Mm-hmm. This is huge. What's happening?
Is it in part because they don't want to see any success out of the Trump administration, because that might mean success for President Trump and possibly another 4 years, or come midterms, the Republicans might have the upper hand because the economy is doing well? Is that in part what's motivating this in your view, Brent?
No, it's not in part. It's 100% why. This is just it's the reason why. It's just as simple as this. They loathe this man. They are not going to give him, I've said this before, if he finds the cure for cancer, they'll attack him for not curing AIDS. There is nothing this man can do that they're going to give him credit for. You know, your colleague Neil Cavuto has been doing stories on the fact that the Dow hit 25,000, the highest number in the history of man. Barely got a wink from anybody. This is an explosive economy. This is the media that have been saying that Donald Trump was going to destroy the economy. Mm-hmm. The evidence is here, and nobody's covering it.
Well, they're still saying it. I mean, you have Nancy Pelosi that's been saying that this is effectively Armageddon, this tax cut plan, and that companies are doing nothing but giving crumbs to their workers. I mean, hey, last time I checked, $1,000 is $1,000, and that's some real money to a lot of families all over this country, Brent.
You know what 1.2% was becoming the new normal. We were being told that to get ready for that as the new normal in America. And now you've got top economists that are saying, scratching their heads, and they're saying, is it possible we could hit 4% this year? No coverage.
Yeah. There's a variety of reasons for it. In part, I think sometimes, a lot of journalists are a little bored, frankly, by economics, or maybe they don't understand economics. And so they would rather cover the silliness as opposed to actually covering the substance. But what you're saying is it's beyond that.
If you go on CNN, I went on there a little while ago. It may have changed just a little bit, but not much. If you go on their website, you will see there are 12 stories on the front page attacking Trump for being, the S word or being a racist. There are 3 other stories attacking Trump on something, and then 1 story on national news. That's CNN's news right now. And then their second level is his fitness, physical fitness, and it's about how he may be deranged.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, ABC ABC, one of the major network newscasts, didn't even bother to do anything on the Walmart news. Again,
It's
a
not news.
major
There's
piece
no
of
longer
news.
news.
Wow. Well,
News
anyway,
is done.
sadly. Not here, though. Not here, Brent. Not here. And not on the Fox Business Network. We still care
That's why
about
we're
real
here.
stuff. Indeed.
That's why we're
Thank you
here.
so much, sir. Good to see you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Trish.
All right,
Good weekend.
officials giving new details as the frantic search for the mudslide survivors continues right now in California. We're going to have the latest for you. All right, take a look here. You've got Marine One landing there, about to land at Joint Base Andrews, where the president will then take off from Mar-a-Lago, where he will be for the weekend, likely another working weekend, as he's been known to work right through the weekend there down in Florida. You can see he had just returned from or is returning from his appointment there at Walter Reed Medical Center, and will soon be heading off for Florida. Search and rescue efforts, they continue for 5 missing in the deadly California mudslides. Adam Housley in Montecito, California with more on it. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Trish, yeah, there's still 5 people officially missing, though the Sheriff's Department says that could go up and down. It has the last few days and continues to do so. They're hoping, and there's at least a sliver of hope, that they still may find someone alive here. Behind me, you can see some of the damage. Look at this massive tree that came crashing down all through here. All these rocks you're looking at right now, for the most part, were nowhere near here. They just came pouring down the hillside, ripping through the house up there in the distance. There's still urban search and rescue crews all throughout this area. To my left, they've already gone through this home here, buried deep in mud. When you talk to the sheriff here in Santa Barbara County, while the likelihood continues to diminish, they still have fully not given up hope.
Disaster circumstances, there have been, many miraculous stories of people lasting many days, and we certainly are searching for a miracle right now.
Right now, 17 remain. 17 is the official number of those killed as young as 3 years old who lost a brother and a sister who were 3 and 10. There was a married couple in their 80s, an elderly couple, so from 3 to 89, and again, still 5 missing. As we come all the way around one more time, I want to show you the size of some of these boulders. Some of the problems they're going to have here, Trish, is just trying to fix the infrastructure. Look at that boulder. It is massive. There's no moving that. You're either going to have to blow it up or leave it where it is. To the right, just a bit more, you'll see another home buried in about 5 feet of mud at one end, and at the other end, it looks almost normal. That's what's so bizarre as you drive around this area. 10,000 people live here. 65 homes roughly have been destroyed. Another 260 have been damaged. So there is significant damage here. Also significant damage as well to the infrastructure. We're told the water system here has been damaged pretty significantly. We know that the power, there's lines down all over the place. There's a lot of areas that need to be cleared. In fact, this boulder over here where I'm at now, this thing is massive. This thing's 6 feet tall, roughly, and this is one of the smaller ones that has to be moved or blown up. There's a lot of work that needs to be done here, Trish. The evacuation order remains in effect for Montecito. We're told for probably 2 weeks. In some areas like this, significantly longer. There's going to be a cleanup here. In fact, back over one more time, Keith, show her through here. The cleanup here is going to take, in some cases, months, if not a couple of years. In some places, may never be dug out. It's truly a devastating effect, and that came from way up there in the distance. That's where the fire was last December, and the rains came roughly 6 inches, which poured everything down the hillsides and took out these homes. And if you keep going all the way down to the beach, all the way down to the Highway 101, it took out everything in its path. Trish?
Devastating. It's really sad to hear, especially when you think of those poor little kids. Anyway, thank you very much, Adam Housley. I want to go right now to a live picture from Joint Base Andrews. You can see the president is about to get out of Marine One there because he'll be heading down to Florida, to Mar-a-Lago for the weekend. He's certainly had quite a day of it and quite a night of it last night in terms of getting hit by every single side, the left and right, all up in arms about his comments, which he said he didn't actually make, specifically the comment about, well, one word, I should say, that has been repeated over and over again in the media, and I need not say it because you know what it is. He said he didn't say that, but the context, as our John Roberts pointed out, surrounding all of this was effectively that he's frustrated we don't have more in the way of a merit-based system. And as we try and come to some kind of resolution in terms of what to do about DACA, he wants to end chain migration. He wants to end the lottery system, and he wants to have a merit-based system, much like, by the way, the rest of the world actually has. It's not so easy to get citizenship in many, many other countries, and Canada included, in fact, and you have to prove your worth. So perhaps the system going forward would be, for example, for us to say, look, we need nurses or we need doctors. They are training nurses, well-educated nurses in the Philippines. Let's seek those nurses out as opposed to randomly handing out lottery tickets because we somehow think we need more immigrants from Afghanistan, shall you? So he really wants to revisit all of this, reform it, change it. You see him there getting off of Marine One. He's going to have a busy weekend ahead, and likely he'll be receiving plenty more criticism throughout the weekend. As Brent Bazell just told us, he can't do anything right as far as the media is concerned. They don't want him to succeed. They don't like seeing the market at levels such as we're looking at near 26,000, with GDP growth better than 3%, with wages increasing, hundreds and hundreds of companies coming out and saying they would raise wages, Walmart included in that. And the reason why is because they do not like him. And if he succeeds, that's a problem as far as they see it. They also would hate to see perhaps the Republicans succeed in midterms. But if the economy is doing well, do not forget, ultimately, people do vote their pocketbooks. So the economy, the markets have a big effect on everything. Again, he's getting on Air Force One there, where he will take off for the entire weekend, where he will be in Mar-a-Lago. We're going to have more right after this. You're looking at a live picture there of Joint Base Andrews, Air Force One, about to take off with the president in it for a weekend trip to Florida. It's coming after the White House decided to waive sanctions against Iran, at least for the time being. Let's go to Fox Business Network's Blake Berman, who's at the White House with more on that story. Blake, fill us in.
Hi there, Trish. Yes, and the White House announcing via a paper statement today that the president would be waiving sanctions against Iran as it relates to the Iran nuclear deal, but saying that he is doing so because he wants to work with European allies to form some sort of a new agreement that would fix, he says, the flaws that he sees in the original Iran nuclear deal agreement. This was a very lengthy statement from the president today, and in part he explained it this way, saying, quote, "This is a last chance. In the absence of such an agreement, the United States will not again waive sanctions in order to stay in the Iran nuclear deal. And if at any time I judge that such an agreement is not within reach, I will withdraw from the deal immediately." Now, the president also said that he would look to work with Congress potentially on a bipartisan deal for a way forward on the matter, but he said that would have to include 4 central tenets. The first, allowing for immediate inspections at all sites. Also ensuring Iran never possesses a nuclear weapon, does not have an expiration date, the deal, and draws no distinction between long-range missiles and nuclear weapons. Iran's foreign minister blasted the decision from the president today, his comments in a tweet saying that this was a, quote, desperate attempt to undermine a solid multilateral agreement. Now, in a completely separate measure, unrelated to this, the Treasury Department also announced that it would be sanctioning 14 different individuals and entities within Iran. This relates to the Iranian government's crackdown on protesters there over the last week. The Treasury Department also sanctioning the head of Iran's judiciary. In a statement, the Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin saying, quote, "The United States will not stand by while the Iranian regime continues to engage in human rights abuses and injustice." Trish?
Thank you so much, Blake. All right. Well, we all know about the big companies that are giving bonuses because of the GOP's tax cut. We've been talking about it here for the last couple of days. But you know what? It's not just big companies. It turns out that the bosses of the smaller companies, they are also handing out extra cash to workers, too, including none other than Steve Califer. He's chairman of Flemington Car and Truck County in New Jersey, and he's giving more than 700 full-time employees $500 bonuses, and that is great. I love hearing that. I love hearing that, Steve.
Well, if you liked hearing it, you should have had the feeling I did when I met with my general managers and said, we have tax reform. We're not sending the money to Washington. We're going to send it to the people that create the income from us, our employees. Flemington Car and Truck Country gets it.
So what did your employees say when they heard this?
It was a mixture of applause. They were stunned, applause. But let me give you some anecdotal stories. A single mother comes up to me and says, with that $500, I have a tuition bill on my table. I know Nancy Pelosi doesn't understand that, but my employees do. I had a technician hug me because he spent too much money for Christmas. Wow. But those go on and on. That's what tax reform does.
Well, you mentioned Nancy Pelosi, and I've suggested that she is going to go down in history as the Marie Antoinette of the Democratic Party, really, because when she's talking about, $500 or $1,000 for that matter being crumbs, what she doesn't realize is that the majority of Americans, they don't have the money for their car should it break down next week. They don't have any extra savings stashed away. So $500 or $1,000, and I don't want to play this for you because in case you missed it, everybody should hear this. They really should. Here is Nancy Pelosi.
In terms of the bonus that corporate America received versus the crumbs that they are giving to workers to kind of put the schmooze on is so pathetic. It's so pathetic.
Now, is that what you're doing? Are you putting the schmooze on, as she would say?
No, we gave our hard, cold cash where it belongs to the people that work for us instead of sending it to Washington. Yeah. She won't pick up crumbs because her Louis Vuitton shoes will get dirty.
It shows you how there's such a this is in part why the president succeeded. There is a division there, a divorce between these politicians that live one kind of life and the people that they're supposed to be serving, the people, frankly, that are employing them. And Nancy Pelosi is one of the biggest examples of that, in that she has had a very sheltered existence, a very wealthy existence, and $1,000 is nothing, perhaps, to her, but it is real money to everyday Americans. And I guarantee you there isn't one Walmart employee out there that isn't thrilled. Just as you said, your employees are thrilled. So let me go further. Let me ask you this. When your employees make the connection between we got this money as a result of the tax cuts, are they willing to look past, well, some of the quote-unquote deficiencies that many see in Donald Trump? In other words, when the media is talking about, oh, he said this, that, and the other, do they say to themselves, I got $500 more because of what he did?
This is about reality, and reality is a paycheck. Reality is making certain that everything counts. And at Flemington Car and Truck Country, our employees are making the connection. Government doesn't pay them. Our customers pay them, and the company cares about them. So when you say, how's that going to relate? It is simple. It is, and it will.
You gave me your company coin here, your motto, which is to be kind, be fair, work hard, earn money, and do good.
That's what we do every day, and that's what entrepreneurs do. Forget the headlines. Forget the sensationalism. This is about families. It's about capital formation. It's about the future, and that's why we gave the bonuses. We weren't looking to be gratuitous. We were looking to be real.
And let me tell you, I'm happy. Good, congratulations, sir. Good for you, and I'm happy that that woman can pay that tuition bill. That's
and
great.
I want to thank my partner for helping me do that.
Thank you. Good to see you, Steve. All right. Kentucky becoming the first state to get the green light on work requirements for Medicaid recipients. How's the governor responding to critics who here are calling it now heartless? We're going to ask him. Matt Bevin is next.
At Joseph.
All right, just hours ago, Kentucky becoming the first state to get approval to require Medicaid recipients to work. The state's Republican governor, Matt Bevin, joins me right now by phone. And Governor Bevin, you're getting some criticism for this. Why do you think it's the right thing to do?
It's interesting. Criticism always comes from liberals. They have no solutions. They are writing failed policies, but anybody who would propose an alternative is quick to receive their scorn. I believe it's the right thing to do because I grew up in poverty. I grew up with no access to health care coverage for the first 20-something years of my life. I was an active duty Army officer before I ever had access. And I understand that, as Administrator Verma put it the other day, it is absolutely soft bigotry. Low expectations is not what people in America need. The dignity that people get and receive from the opportunity to do for themselves, to be engaged in their own health outcome, is what ultimately leads to better health outcomes. When people have a vested interest in anything, they are more likely to care about it, to utilize it, and to get the maximum value from it. I am utterly convinced from personal experience that having that opportunity is the greatness of America, and we owe it to people to give them that chance to improve their lives.
You know, part of the problem with welfare is that it becomes a bit of a trap. And, you know, you can't go to work because you're getting that much from the government. And then you just want more from the government. It's that much harder to go to work. You think about, say, a single mom who makes a rational decision, perhaps to stay home because she may have more money coming into her via the state, via the federal government, than if she were to actually go to work and have to pay for daycare and have to pay for gas, et cetera, and be away from her kids. So it seems to me that there should be some kind of in-between system, Governor, where we're doing what we can to help people to help themselves. And is this one way, via this Medicaid reform, a way of doing that?
Absolutely, Trish. And I'll tell you, it's interesting. This is the first federal entitlement reform that we've seen since the mid-'90s. This is going to be transformative, not just for Kentucky, but as a model for the nation, because it will give millions of people who are in that trap that you've just described the opportunity to get out. Medicaid and other entitlement programs were not intended to be life destinations. They were not intended to be dead ends. They were intended to be transitory situations for certainly able-bodied people, people with alternatives. We want to provide those alternatives to them. And one of the things in this waiver is exactly that, the ability to come alongside existing requirements and transition people to the private sector, transition them to traditional and commercial health care provided by employers because they're out there working. And if for some reason that employer program is not the same that they would have gotten under Medicaid, that will come alongside and make up the difference, costing the taxpayer less.
And I just want to point out, you know, for your sake, that if, for example, you had a single mother that couldn't work, you're not going to force her to work and, you know, perhaps take the kids in tow to that. And somebody who was very, very ill and couldn't work, that person as well would not be forced. You're talking about able-bodied people that have time on their hands that could do it. But let me go to something else, and that's, well, shall we say, the headlines that the president has been making since around this time yesterday. What do you make of that? What do you think needs to happen on immigration reform? And is this rhetoric going to get in the way?
Honestly, I've been focused on two things. Number one, my meeting with the president is related to prison reform. Then since then, I've been focused on what we're doing as it relates to transitioning Medicaid requirements for the first time in America. I've not focused on what his commentary has been on that front. As it relates to immigration reform, we need to
I guess you weren't
it.
watching CNN then.
I have not. I don't spend much of my time watching CNN.
Good answer. But that said, you know, I'll fill you in that everybody's up in arms about this, and they're concerned that he said some racist things by suggesting that we would be better off having immigrants from countries like Norway as opposed to, say, Haiti or other places in Africa. Do you interpret that as a racist comment, or do you think he was really perhaps just commenting on the fact that, you know, per capita GDP in some countries is a whole lot higher and you have a more educated population than in other countries?
Without professing to be an expert on all that has been said, or certainly can't speak for what somebody meant, here's what I know. So many are quick to decry as anything they don't agree with a comment to be racist. If everything is racist, we diminish the reality that racism truly exists. And I find it offensive, as a father of black children and a father of white children, that people are so quick to be dismissive of certain things and to categorize them as racist. I happen to have children that were born both in this country and outside of this country. And the fact of the matter is, America is a nation of immigrants, and people know that. And getting hung up on any vernacular, appropriate, inappropriate, things that might have been said, word choices that might have been different. The reality is this: we as a nation have an obligation and a responsibility to look out for our people first. And by our people, I mean people who are citizens of the United States. And yet we are a nation of immigrants. And we have always been a nation that welcomed people in, the huddled masses and others beside. And nobody, including our president, to my knowledge, is saying that we should be anything other than that. But what he and I think many others and myself would agree with is that we've got to take care of those that are here first. A nation has a responsibility to protect its borders, to take care of its citizens, and that we get to dictate the rules by which people become citizens. And I think, as speaking as a governor and as a taxpayer and a citizen and as a father and as somebody who cares about this, I think we need to make it easier for people to come here legally and make it harder for them to come here illegally. It's not that complicated. I know that's what our president is fighting for, and I think people should focus on that and not allowing themselves to be whipped off into tizzies over some word choice, which is what I believe is the catalyst behind all of it.
Well, you say that also very eloquently, sir, and you make a lot of sense. And, you know, there's a reality here that we need to focus on as opposed to the circus distractions going on. Anyway, thank you, Governor. It's good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much.
All right,